Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. It's team news time as we look ahead to game week 6. My name is Joe and once again I'm joined by Neale, Fantasy Football Scout's editor and team sheet person and lineup predictor. I'm avoiding the word guru. Neale, how are you?
Yeah, I'm certainly not that. I'm all right, thanks, Joe. Yeah, not too bad.
Good stuff.
We've got a slightly later deadline tomorrow, of course, with 1:30, so we're not quite as rushed, and we get to hear those embargo sections as well on Friday night.
Okay.
And Saturday morning as well. So there might still be more to come, but we'll round up what we know.
Yes, I'm going to hold off my transfer until tonight, but I can't make one tomorrow because I've got to go to a wedding in the middle of Wales. I understand there is internet connection in Wales. It has reached Wales, but I understand where I'm going is not particularly good. So I'm going to make a move tonight. Okay. Just before we move on, just welcome those joining us in the live chat. A good couple of hundred of you so far, the early ones as well. I know it does pick up a bit as we go on. Dennis, Grant, Historia Films, Janko Rules, Geo Boys, Ninja Polar Camel, Barry, The Air, Romit, FPL Rank Chaser, and many more. Thanks so much for joining us. Lots of requests there. Will Ferguson be fit? Will Chilwell play? What's happened to Alexander Arnold? And so on. Lots of questions to answer. So we'll just start off, really. We're looking at a boring one. Crystal Palace, Fulham. That's the technically the first match. Lots of kickoffs on Saturday afternoon. We'll start with Crystal Palace. Get it out of the way first. Nathan Ferguson's not going to play, is he?
I don't think so. He's barely even mentioned these days. And as I said last week, he's not even listed in FPL. So I don't think anyone anywhere is expecting to see him anytime soon.
Meanwhile, I was going to say, meanwhile, players that people do own.
Yeah, we will see two of them. Well, two of the regulars, anyway, regular starters. That's Margui and Jordan Ayew, who came off last week with a dead leg. Mm-hmm. They're both fit for the Fulham game. They will still be without 3 players, one of whom is a regular starter. That's Jefferson Lerma. He's still not quite recovered from a hamstring injury. It sounds short-term-ish, so maybe within the next few weeks. With him, Tompkins and Ahamada, they're both all out. As are Franco and Alicia were the long-term ones. Now, Alicia's had a setback this week as well, so I think it's going to be a long time before we see him. So more of the set players for Eze in the meanwhile.
Okay. Meanwhile, with Fulham as well, I mean, Fulham seem okay at the moment. They seem to play better, but their defence is still shipping a lot of goals. Leno's making a lot of saves. And there's not a lot of interest in their attacking players. But, nevertheless, Fulham, how are they doing?
Not too bad, yeah. Two of the players were out last week. In fact, 3. One we didn't know about, and that is Traore. He was absent last weekend, and he still is. Turns out that's a hamstring injury picked over the international break. Tosin's still out, and Lukic is still out. They might get one player back. They should get one player back if Marco Silva's coach are to be believed. And that's Anthony Robinson, who's the left back. He missed out with a muscle problem, but he's been in training this week. Of course, Castagna came in and caught the eye, and there was a quote about who's going to play up front as well, because Vinicius came off the bench last weekend, scored against Luton, and obviously, as you would expect, Silva giving nothing away. We've got 3 players up there who can possibly start, so no clues, unfortunately.
Okay, Mohammed in the live chat has just provided a great segue into the next part. He wonders whether he should get Morris or Edouard in, and people are saying, are you serious, to him? But Edouard, of course, is in fine form for Crystal Palace and should start. Meanwhile, next match is Luton against Wolves, and Morris has a double game week in game week 7. You wouldn't have thought much interest this week, but playing Wolves could be advantageous to get him in early. I hadn't heard anything from Luton, but had you before this?
No, we haven't, unfortunately. They were both down. This is Luton and Sheffield United both down for 1:30. Mm-hmm. Now, we've experienced in the past, those times mean nothing at all when it comes to those two teams. I suspect they're being held at those points, and then the embargo is not lifted until later in the afternoon. Right. So I've heard nothing as of yet. What we did know is that Potts, Clark and Osho, they're still out. And Bartley shouldn't be too long. He missed out last weekend with a slight hamstring issue. Mm-hmm. That's all we know about at the moment. Wolves, it's very, very straightforward. Everyone should be fine. So that includes Ait Nori, who came off last weekend with, it seems like, muscle fatigue. And even Joe Hodge, who was the one red flag, he's been out with a hamstring problem. He's returned to training this week as well.
Okay, with Wolves, we keep mentioning on our goals imminent video, myself and Tom. They keep looking like due for a goal and assist, and then they indeed next week do score or assist goals. Neto in particular has been fantastic form. Everyone's still avoiding them though. They're the team that's everyone's getting away. So against Luton, they could do well. What shape are Wolves in?
I've just told you.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
they're all good.
Oh, sorry. I was miles away. I was looking at some stats on Neto, and I do apologise for that bit. But yeah, they're doing well.
It's
but yeah,
fine.
but it's worth mentioning that they're totally being ignored by everyone, including myself. In that one, do
People
apologise.
tend to drift off when I talk to you.
No, I wasn't drifting off. I was looking at various buttons on the screen to control this thing, and also I was looking to see how many assists that Neto had got. Let's sketch over that. I'm just going to ignore stats now. I'm just going to listen to you. Man City against Nottingham Forest. Man City, quite a few injuries there. Anyone back and any new injuries?
Yes, they might have Jack Grealish back, potentially from the bench, because I think he's been out for a little while, about a month, I think. And he's back in training. This has just comes about 48 hours after Guardiola said he'd be 7 to 10 days away from recovery. And lo and behold, he's probably going to be involved this weekend in some capacity. So he could be back. Kovacic is in the final stages of his recovery, but that sounded to me like he's unlikely to feature. And then you've got longer term ones like John Stones and Kevin De Bruyne, who's very long term. They have been joined this week by Bernardo, who picked up an injury. We're not sure exactly what it was, but he's out now for up to 2 weeks. So again, short-termish, but enough to whittle away the potential rotation options in the middle of the park. So Grealish potentially back. There was a quote on Alvarez from Pep, nothing to do with injuries or anything like that, but he was asked about his form. And he said, obviously, with the injuries we've got now, he's had minutes and he's given us a lot of good things. That's why he's playing. But he has to continue. And then here's the line. Many games, there will be games when he will not play. Be ready for that. So, I mean, he could be talking about when everyone's back, for example, when Bernardo is fine, when Grealish is fine, when Kovacic is back fully fit, and De Bruyne especially, which is still some time away.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I took from that last quote, was that that when those players do come back, Alvarez has got to be shifted, basically. He's in such good form, and in which case he may well be by the likes of Silva or whoever. So I think I would go on a limb and say I'd play pretty safe this weekend, but you never know. You never know. And that is annoying when Pep says things like that. But that's the way we've got to do it. Nottingham Forest, meanwhile, it's going to be a tough match for them, but they've been better this season than last season, haven't they?
And better against the bigger clubs as well. I mean, they were quite poor against Burnley on Monday, but then they had 3 games really where they were in it in every game. Man United, Arsenal, and then finishing with that win at Chelsea. So they arguably saved their best for the bigger clubs. No fresh concerns reported by Steve Cooper. Danilo sounds like he's still out for a couple of weeks. Body's been back in training. He was only ill in Gameweek 5. He should be back. Serge Aurier, Cooper said that he's getting closer and they're trying to push him as hard as they can without taking any risks. I mean, just ignore all the above, really, from Cooper, as we've said before, because he talks absolute BS. There was a quote from him on Matt Turner. Again, how much you read into this depends on how much you believe Cooper. He said that Matt's settled into the group really well, a really good lad, good work ethic. He did say we're in a really strong place now with the goalkeepers. So he's got the Vlaco Dimos, the new deadline day signing, as well as Hennessy. He did say, he finished the quote by saying, I don't want to say too much because you want your goalkeeper to play well the next game, and let's hope we can support him to do that. So that implies that Turner's still going to start.
Yes.
But as you know, with Cooper, anything goes, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a new dad again. I think his wife gave birth last week. So some people were speculating he wouldn't start so soon after that, but he did. So you would think he'd be starting here as well. Okay. Let's move on to Brentford against Everton. Everton looking poor. Brentford looking good this season. But you never know. Now, I haven't heard anything from Brentford. I don't know if you've got any latest there from Frank.
Nothing on Ben Mee, it was sort of seemed to be struggling before he got taken off against Newcastle. Jay Harris has been reporting on the press conference this afternoon from The Athletic, and Brentford themselves have been tweeting stuff out. I'm just going to quickly check if there's anything new.
We know.
I don't think.
Yeah, Rico Henry is obviously the big news, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the big news. That came out at midweek. That was on the Brentford website. He's out for the season, but it sounds like with the serious ACL injury picked up against Newcastle. So he's out. De Silva's still out. Baptista's still out. Ivan Toney, who has now returned to training, he's allowed to do that now, but he's still suspended until the new year.
Okay.
So those four are definitely red flagged. And then they've got these three yellow flagged players, Ben Mee, Aja, and Damsgaard. I don't think we've heard anything from Frank on those three yet, but there might be some stuff coming out later.
Okay. Meanwhile, with Everton, I mean, I wouldn't be hopeful of many goals here, but any news on their players?
Almost as you were. So Jack Harrison's looking better. He's been in training for a little while. He hasn't played since he signed from Leeds. Dice said he's not ready to start, so he didn't. I think he 100% said that he's not going to feature at all. But he said, he's looking sharp, but he's not ready to go yet. So he sort of contradicted himself with these statements there. We're not sure if he's going to miss out at all or just on the bench. Dele Alli's still out. Coleman's still out. Andre Gomez is still out. The only line of note was Dyche saying that he might pair Beto and Calvert-Lewin as a strike partnership at some point in the future, as he did at Burnley with Barnes and Wood.
Okay.
But again, said there was no guarantees that would happen anytime soon.
A tiny reminder from those in the live chat, including GWiz, there to press that like button for those in the live chat at the moment. Getting on for nearly 600 of you, so almost 400 have just joined us. Let's hope you like what you see. Do press that like button. And also, if you're not subscribing already, do subscribe so that you can keep up to date with all our videos and podcasts. Okay, let's move on to Burnley against Manchester United. Well, let's go for Manchester United first. Because there's a lot of people with Manchester United assets in the team, particularly Rashford, Fernandes, Nana. But at the same time, there's a lot of people wildcarding getting rid of them as well. So this is a pivotal match. If Manchester United go off, there's going to be a lot of unhappy wildcarders. But if they don't, then there's going to be a lot of smug wildcarders. So what shape are Manchester United in for the... they've got to try and return to form, winning ways against Burnley.
They have, yeah. They've added Wan-Bissaka to the injury list this week. I think he's out for up to 2 months.
Okay.
So that's him, Shaw, Amad Diallo, Malacia, who are definitely out. And of course, Anthony and Jadon Sancho as well for the off-the-field reasons. They have had 3 players back in training this week. Varane, Mount, and Amrabat as well. Ten Hag was a little bit coy on whether they're gonna be involved. He's still pointing to the fact that they've been out for a little while. He did say Varane's been out the shortest time, so maybe he's the closest. Okay. Maguire could have come back as well. He's had some complaints in training this week, and he missed the Bayern Munich game. He could be available, but they're slowly getting players back, even if it's not in time for this one.
Okay, and as for Burnley as well, one of my players on the bench, Bayer, he was substituted. But so is he okay for this, do you think?
It seems to be the case, yeah. Okay. I think it was reported straight after that game that he had cramp. Not the first time this season that's happened, so he came off with that. We seem to think, and company didn't imply anything yesterday that there was anything new picked up from the Forest game. So they've still got Chilinov, Obafemi, and Ekdal out. Foster begins a 3-game ban. He's looked quite good actually. He's a 5 million forward in FPL. I think were it not for Archer, I think more people will be looking at him, especially for the double, but he's now banned for 3 games, one of which is the AFL Cup game next week. So he will return for the second match in double game week 7.
Okay.
But he'll miss the first half of it.
Okay. In the live chat, Barry has said that he loves Manchester United supporting content creators, saying to stick with United assets. I hope he doesn't mean us. Neale supports Newcastle and I support Brighton. So I don't care what people do with them. But I do have them, and I do have faith in them for this clash. I think psychologically it's a must win for them to turn it around, and it's a good time to do it against promoted side. Arsenal against Tottenham, North London derby, hard to predict, but I suspect goals. I suspect Arsenal will win. That's been a pattern when I've seen games recently between these two. But what shape are Arsenal in particular Martinelli? Because if he's out, could signal Trossard's start. So how's he and the rest of Arteta's troops?
Well, as you might expect, very little given away from Arteta, who isn't the most talkative of chaps. He did say that they were still assessing him. So let's see if we can make the game or not. He then wasn't spotted in training ground footage on Friday. So this was, I think, Football Daily reported this from Sky Sports. So that doesn't seem too good for the weekend. Timber's still out, Partey's still out, and of course Martinelli's the doubt. I think apart from that, everyone's all right. He did add Arteta that he hasn't decided he was going to play in goal this weekend.
Okay.
There'll be some week-to-week uncertainty there, but David Raya started the last two in League Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Raya's looked good. Ramsdale's still quite good. You just can't go there as an FPL asset. No. You don't know who's going to play. And also he hinted that he may even make a goalkeeper change midway through a match. So it's a no-go zone. Spurs, how are they?
I think it's as you were. I think Postecoglou said there's no fresh concern. So apart from Perisic,
I was going to prompt you.
That was revealed in midweek. So I think he was talking about since then. Perisic, if you hadn't heard, suffered a complex ACL injury in his right knee, so he's now out for the rest of the season, and we'll probably never see him again in the Premier League because his contract's up.
Okay.
Sessegnon's still out, Brian Gill as well, Bennett and Kerr, and Lo Celso, they're all still out.
Okay. Update from Barry in the live chat. He wasn't referring to us. He knew us too well. The only reason I said that is because obviously we haven't got Manchester accents, so we could have easily been Manchester United fans. Okay, let's move on to Brighton against Bournemouth. My team. With my authentic Brighton accent, Sporting Brighton. Now, Brighton, first ever Europa League game last night. A lot of changes. They lost, weren't at their best, but they lost 3-2. Now, what has De Zerbi been saying since that in terms of potential rotation? And there's a lot of potential players that could be out through various injuries and illness. What is the latest? Lots to talk about here.
There is, and before watching this all the way through to get the exact quotes, because all we've seen so far is the reportage on it from the Argus and elsewhere. 4 players newly flagged, either as a result of injuries last night or missing out last night. So Dunk, Ferguson, Gross, and Milner, so all pretty key players really. They're all going to be assessed. Ferguson's got the best chance, but sounds like it's just illness with him. The rest of them, there's some concern. I think Dunk, De Zerbi said they're not going to take any chances with him. Milner, they're not sure about, and Gross, I think they're still assessing him because that was last night. And Sisu, of course, is out long term. And on top of that, he was asked about changes and how many he's going to make, and he said a lot.
Okay.
So,
blimey. My instinct is we're going to see a lot of those fringe players. The likes of Lallana could get a game if he decides to rest Pedro. If Ferguson is not ready, Welbeck is obviously going to be there. But I've got a feeling Welbeck's going to start this anyway. Yeah. Because if Ferguson arrived at training, arrived at the stadium with a temperature, they immediately told him to go away and get better. And so, I mean, if you have a temperature, you could be, you'd probably be out, probably ill today, might feel better tomorrow. But of course, you've got training on Saturday, the match on Sunday. That says to me he's going to be on the bench if he's available at all. But that's just speculating there. We might know a bit more a bit later. But that's my thoughts on that. Mitoma, Estupinan, they're popular players. I hope they start.
There was a little quote. Again, I'll transcribe this verbatim later on. I've seen this reported about potential captains if Dunk misses out, and he name-checked 3 players, and they were Webster, Gilmore, and Estupinan. So maybe slightly hinting that those 3 are going to start. Estupinan, of course, missed out last week because he returned late from internationals. Played last night. 90 minutes, I believe, against Athens. So there was a little bit of concern there. But hopefully, if we can read something into that quote, then he might start.
Okay, rightio. Bournemouth, not in Europe, but one day, we can all dream. Bournemouth, how are they set up for this?
As you were. Bottom of my team's article, because there's so little to report. Adams, Fredericks, Marcondes, and Scott still out, and no fresh concerns from last week.
Okay, rightio. Chelsea against Aston Villa. Chilwell, he's gone from essential winger out of position to being being replaced by Mudryk as left wing, Colwell replacing him as left back. Did he say anything about Chilwell?
Not that I've seen. Again, there'll be some embargo quotes later on. I didn't hear anything. I did have it on live on YouTube, and nothing caught me here. I don't think anything's been reported since.
Okay.
Injury wise, they've still got quite a lot. I've just shut down my article with all the notes.
Okay.
On. Let me bring that back up. Yeah, they've still got quite a few red flags.
Okay.
So Lavia and Kunku, James is still out, of course, then a couple of weeks away. Fafana, Bettinelli, Chalobah, Chukwuemeka, they're all out. Badia Shields had a minor setback, so he's I think put himself back a fortnight or so. Positive news elsewhere. I think mostly Cucurella's back in training. Maduiki's back in training. They should be all right. Caicedo has been back as well, individual training, but I think possibly team training today. He's going to be assessed later on. Big line on Brozier, who's of course Jackson's potential rival. I think medium term. He could be involved this weekend. Pochettino said maybe about 4 times. So I think he's it is a 50-50.
Okay.
And of course he hasn't played for 9 months. So you're looking at bench minutes first, but more concern for Jackson, who was, of course, on 4 yellow cards as well.
But for giving it some of that.
all of them dissent. Yeah. No, any of them are for fouls. And Pochettino was asked about that today and said he's had a word with him about getting booked for silly things, and hopefully he's taking that on board.
Okay. Rightio. And if he hasn't, then Brojo will step in and replace him.
Exactly.
Obviously. Aston Villa. I don't think we've heard from Emery, have we? Is there any latest?
Well, there's a few quotes just landed now on the club website. I think this was because they were in action last night, so there would have been a special section for Game Week 6 embargoed till today, but there's nothing really there that I've seen so far. Nothing on team news. Let me check what we had last. Ramsey was back. Actually, Ramsey was back in a match day, scored last night. Jacob Ramsey, and got minutes off the bench. He's not featured at all this season, so that's one less flag there. Mings, of course, Buendia. Out long term. Diego Carlos has been sidelined since Game Week 4 as well. I think Burton Traore was the only other one he wouldn't feature anyway. So I didn't spot anything new last night. So I don't think there's anything fresh.
Rightio. HK in the live chat said it was good to see Brighton brought back down to earth, because they're so big-headed, aren't they? Like Manchester United in European game midweek. I don't think it was good. It was their first ever European match. Not brought back to earth. Deary me, HK. Let's move on to Liverpool against West Ham. Liverpool, obviously very experienced in Europe, got a massive trophy cabinet to prove it. Alexander-Arnold's probably the main name we need to consider here. I haven't seen him for a while on the pitch. Is he likely to return?
I think there's still some doubt about this. He wasn't cited in training on Wednesday, which was the last time they trained. Of course, they had the match last night. And I don't think they've done much today. Might be some pictures creeping out later. The Athletic reported in midweek that he was confident or hopeful of facing West Ham, but I think this might come too soon.
Okay.
It was only him and Thiago who were flagged. The confusion is because Klopp hasn't really given us a press conference. He gave what passed for like a media gathering. I think it was just one reporter, and it wasn't even listed on the press conference list. So I think this is just him fulfilling media duties, and there was no team news involved there at all. We do know Van Dijk's back from suspension. Konate, who was on the bench last weekend, he started last night, so they're both fit and available. Okay, it's just Trent Reed and Thiago who are the doubts.
Okay, West Ham now. West Ham were in European action last night. There were quite a few notable names that we have some question marks over, aren't there?
There's 2, and there's one in particular I think maybe people are looking at from Game Week 10 onwards, and that's Jared Bowen, who wasn't involved last night, but he was only ill, so they're going to assess him. It was a virus. Again, if he misses out this weekend, then when you don't really want him against Liverpool, then he should be back for the good run in Game Week 10. Cresswell felt his hamstring as well. He's a backup left back these days, so nothing major there. And then Alvarez, I think, is fine because he wasn't involved last night through suspension, and his withdrawal last weekend was fatigue related, I think. So he seems fine.
Okay, and to round it all off, your team take on Sheffield United. Obviously, another team in Europe. Everyone's in Europe at the moment, and did rather better than Brighton. Slightly stiffer opposition, but Newcastle. What sort of shape are they in after that? Because it's rare at the moment. They have a midweek Champions League game.
Yeah, first time in 20 years we've had
Wow.
a group stage game in the Champions League. They seem to have come out of it unscathed. I mean, Joe Litton's still out and Joe Willock are still out. They're going to be absent for a little while. Joe Litton possibly before the international break, but Willock definitely afterwards. He has said there might be a bit of rotation, but he wants to avoid making wholesale changes.
Okay.
So he doesn't want to disrupt the rhythm. So again, I think you're going to see a handful rather than 9 or 10. And he did provide a line on Callum Wilson as well, who was a starter in Gameweek 5, scored a penalty, but then was benched in the San Siro. How just reminding us that we have to manage his load, whether it's a single week or a 3-game week. So I think he doesn't train like for a couple of days after a match. So the chances of him ever starting 3 games, like if it's a Tuesday, Saturday, then it's unlikely.
Okay, rightio. So yeah, do you think he will start this one?
I do, yeah. That's my prediction anyway, and I think he comes back in for this one, especially after his goal last week.
Yeah,
Isak's put in a lot of energy against Milan. There is a big turnaround Tuesday, Sunday. That's as generous as you could hope for, really. Yeah, but I still think Wilson comes back in.
Righty-o. Okay, and Sheffield United. I haven't heard anything from Sheffield United. Do we know anything?
No, exactly. One of the two I mentioned earlier who were down for 1:30, but you just disregard that time whenever you're in the press conference time. I don't think we've had anything yet. I will get news on that eventually, and it'll be up on the article Roundup on the site. What we did know going into today was that Osborne, Lowe, Fleck, they're still out. Jefferson's had this illness. I think he's still out. Bruce there with Norton Davies, they're working their way back from long-term injuries. Baldock, I saw, is reportedly out until October, which is, I mean, that's just 8-9 days away. But I think he's unlikely to feature here. McBurney's banned. He serves a 1-match ban. He was sent off last week. And then we're waiting on news on John Egan and Willa Sula. Okay. See if they're any fitter. But yeah, we should get news on that pretty soon, and then it'll be available on the website.
All right, yeah. As Neale said earlier, there is a Saturday deadline rather than a Friday night one. That's good because we do get occasionally in local press and national press some embargoed quotes, which can add a little bit more weight, a little more hint about who might be starting and possible rotation. So it's worth, if you can, hold off those transfers until tonight. I think I will be, but you might get a bit more also in the press on Saturday morning. Unfortunately, it'd be too late for me, but might not be for you. Let's have a look at the team news roundup. Fit to play. This is not necessarily they will play, but fit to play as far as we know. Gahey and AU at Palace, Ramsey and Moreno are back for Villa, so they should be fit to play. Questionable Brozier could play, but there's obviously fitness being out for so long. Dunker's got that muscular problem, and Ferguson had that illness turned up with a temperature. Could be. It's likely he'll play, but it might not start. Grealish, fitness problems. Bowen, illness again. Got a virus, so you think he might have a chance, but he'll definitely be. It's not long term. Cresswell, hamstring issue, could keep him out. Pascal Gross has a muscle issue. Martinelli's hamstring, we don't know. He's questionable at the moment. Will he start? Casado, fitness issues. Mount, fitness issues. He's been back in training, but will he start with a fitness? And same with Varane. And you indicate that Varane might be the closest to a return. Nori as well has got a muscular problem at Wolves. Major doubt. Alexander-Arnold, we don't know too much about that. It's possible, unlikely he'll play. And same with Thiago, his teammate. Meanwhile, lots of players out. Foster's suspended with Burnley. Those are considering him for game week 7. He is out for 3 matches, begins that ban today. Danilo and Oria at Nottingham Forest are out with injury. James is still out as ever with his hamstring. Bernardo Silva's got a knock, and that's going to keep him out for a couple of weeks. Willock and Joe Ellington at Newcastle have Achilles and knee problems respectively. Partey at Arsenal, injury there, that's going to keep. He's been out for a few weeks, and that's going to continue. Perisic, Neale said, we might not see him again in the Premier League. His contract runs out at the end of the season, and he has an ACL injury that's likely to keep him out for the rest of the season. Now, Ferguson, is he real? I've put him in there just because we do. And Wan-Bissaka, the guy that Ferguson almost replaced if he was fit enough at Crystal Palace, now of Manchester United, obviously Wan-Bissaka. He's got an injury. He's joined the absentees for Manchester United. I think I've mentioned most people there of interest. There were many more, but I think they're the main ones that might be in teams or might influence decisions. Neale, thanks so much for joining me. I think we've covered everything neatly in half an hour there. Thanks for those that joined us in the live chat. Do press that like button. And if you're watching back, press that like button and do subscribe if you're not already on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and also wherever you receive your podcasts as well. And feel free to leave a comment on wherever you leave your podcasts as well. It's always nice, especially if it's a nice comment. If it's not a nice comment, don't bother. Okay, Neale, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everyone again. Good luck with your decisions in game week 6. We'll see you next week. See you soon, Neale.
Bye-bye.